The Special Forces mission that killed Osama bin Laden was extremely difficult not just because of its operational complexity and the uncertainty of the intelligence. It was also complicated by the location where bin Laden was finally discovered, not far from Pakistan's capital and right under the noses of the Pakistani army. There have long been doubts about the commitment and trustworthiness of America's chief ally in the fight against al-Qaeda, and Pakistan was kept in the dark about the assault against bin Laden. Now the relationship between the two countries has never been worse.
The story will continue in a moment.
You didn't tell anybody in the Pakistani government or the military or the intelligence community?
No.
Because you didn't trust them?
As I said, I didn't tell most people here in the White House. I didn't tell my own family. It was that important for us to maintain operational security.
But you were carrying out this operation in Pakistan.
Yeah.
You didn't trust them.
If I'm not revealing to some of my closest aides what we're doing, then I sure as heck am not going to be revealing it to folks who I don't know.
Right now, it's certainly the location of his house, the location of the compound just raises all sorts of questions. Do you believe people in the Pakistani government, Pakistani intelligence agencies knew that bin Laden was living there?
We think that there had to be some sort of support network for bin Laden inside of Pakistan. But we don't know who or what that support network was. We don't know whether there might have been some people inside of government, people outside of government, and that's something that we have to investigate, and more importantly, the Pakistani government has to investigate. And we've already communicated to them, and they have indicated they have a profound interest in finding out what kinds of support networks bin Laden might have had. But these are questions that we're not going to be able to answer 3 or 4 days after the event.
Pakistan's incompetence or duplicity in failing to locate bin Laden has already sparked a debate over whether the U.S. should continue to supply the country with billions of dollars in military aid. But good relations with Pakistan are still vital to U.S. interests. Most of the supplies for U.S. troops fighting in Afghanistan must move through Pakistan, and President Obama says it remains a valuable source of information.
When you announced that bin Laden had been killed last Sunday, you said our counterterrorism cooperation with Pakistan helped lead us to bin Laden in the compound where he was hiding. Can you be more specific on that, and how much help did Pakistan actually provide in getting rid of bin Laden?
What I can say is that Pakistan, since 9/11, has been a strong counterterrorism partner with us. There have been times where we've had disagreements. There have been times where we wanted to push harder, and for various concerns, they might have hesitated. And those differences are real, and they'll continue. But the fact of the matter is that we've been able to kill more terrorists on Pakistani soil than just about any place else. We could not have done that without Pakistani cooperation. And I think that this will be an important moment in which Pakistan and the United States gets together and says, all right, we've gotten bin Laden, but we've got more work to do. And are there ways for us to work more effectively together than we have in the past? And that's going to be important for our national security.
But the U.S. won't have to rely exclusively on Pakistan to investigate bin Laden's support network inside that country. The U.S. has had bin Laden's compound under surveillance for months, checking the comings and goings. And there is all that material that was confiscated from his lair during the raid. This video, released over the weekend, shows bin Laden watching himself on Al Jazeera, a novelty item compared to the documents, files, and computer drives that are expected to yield valuable information about his contacts in Pakistan and around the world.
It's going to take some time for us to be able to exploit the intelligence that we were able to gather on site. And I just want the American people to think about this. These guys, our guys, go in the dead of night. It's pitch black. They're taking out walls, false doors, getting shot at. They kill bin Laden, and they have the presence of mind to still gather up a whole bunch of bin Laden's material, which will be a treasure trove of information that could serve us very well in the weeks and months to come. It's just an indication of the extraordinary work that they did.
Do you have any sense of what they found there?
We are now obviously putting everything we've got into analyzing and evaluating all that information. But we anticipate that it can give us leads to other terrorists that we've been looking for a long time, other high-value targets, but also can give us a better sense of existing plots that might have been there, how they operated and their methods of communicating. And we now have the opportunity, we're not done yet, but we've got the opportunity, I think, to really finally defeat at least al-Qaeda in that border region between Pakistan and Afghanistan. That doesn't mean that we will defeat terrorism. It doesn't mean that al-Qaeda hasn't metastasized to other parts of the world where we've got to address operatives there. But it does mean we've got a chance to, I think, really deliver a fatal blow to this organization if we follow through aggressively in the months to come.
By the time President Obama arrived in New York City on Thursday to honor the nearly 3,000 people killed on 9/11, there were already reports of evidence collected from bin Laden's compound about al-Qaeda's aspirations to conduct attacks on U.S. rail systems. This was President Obama's first visit to Ground Zero since taking office, and he wanted to close a loop. He laid a wreath of red, white, and blue at the foot of a tree that was pulled from the rubble, nursed back to health, and replanted. And he met with relatives of the victims, one of them 14-year-old Peyton Wall, who had sent the president a letter earlier in the week about her father, Glenn, who was killed when the towers fell.
She'd spoken to her dad when she was 4 years old before the towers collapsed. He was in the building. And she described what it had been like for the last 10 years, growing up, always having the sound of her father's voice and thinking that she'd never see him again, and watching her mother weep on the phone.
Let's go, guys. Come on.
The president also paid a visit to Engine 54 Ladder 4, the New York firehouse that had 15 people killed on September 11th. He dedicated the raid to them and thousands of others who had lost their lives that day. After the ceremony, we managed to grab a few more minutes with the president to talk about the future.
In some ways, this is the end of a chapter.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you a little bit about where we go from here. There are people in Congress, influential people now on both sides of the aisle, who are saying that this is an opportunity for us to cut our commitment in Afghanistan and hasten our withdrawals. What's your response to that?
Well, first of all, remember that when I came in, I said, we're going to end the war in Iraq so that we can refocus attention on Afghanistan, Pakistan, and the border region there where al-Qaeda was focused. We've now removed 100,000 troops from Iraq. We did increase our troop levels in Afghanistan so that we could blunt the momentum of the Taliban and create platforms that would allow us to go after al-Qaeda directly. We've denigrated al-Qaeda significantly even before we got bin Laden. And I think it's important for everybody to understand that the work that's been done in Afghanistan helped to prepare us for being able to take bin Laden out. Now, I've already committed to a transition starting in July where we're going to begin drawing down our troops in Afghanistan. But it's important to understand that our job's not yet finished and that we've got to make sure that we leave an Afghanistan that can secure itself, that does not again become a safe haven for terrorist activity. But I think that that can be accomplished on the timeline that I've already set out.
I mean, you seem to think that it might hasten our withdrawal.
Well, keep in mind what has happened on Sunday, I think, reconfirms that we can focus on al-Qaeda, focus on the threats to our homeland, train Afghans in a way that allows them to stabilize their country. But we don't need to have a perpetual footprint of the size that we have now.
Do you think this improves the chances for some kind of a negotiated settlement in Afghanistan?
I think what it does is it sends a signal to those who might have been affiliated with terrorist organizations, that might have had a favorable view towards al-Qaeda, that they're going to be on the losing side of this proposition. And it may make some of those local power brokers, those local Taliban leaders, have second thoughts and say maybe it makes more sense for us to figure out how to participate in a political process as opposed to engaging in a war with folks who I think we've shown don't give up.
We wanted to know what kind of awards and decorations the president had in mind for the U.S. Special Forces who participated in the assault on bin Laden's compound.
They'll pretty much get whatever they want, but these guys are so low-key, so focused on just doing their job that they get embarrassed, I think, if they get too much attention.
On behalf of all Americans and people around the world, job well done. Job well done.
On Friday, the president got a chance to thank them personally during a visit to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where the helicopter pilots were based. He reportedly met them behind closed doors, along with the Navy SEALs who carried out the assault. It's unlikely you will ever see the faces or learn the names of those who avenged 9/11 and finally disposed of its mastermind. Their identities are classified and likely to remain so.
Is this the first time that you've ever ordered someone killed?
Well, keep in mind that every time I make a decision about launching a missile, every time I make a decision about sending troops into battle, I understand that this will result in people being killed, and that is a sobering fact, but it is one that comes with the job.
This is one man. This is somebody who's cast a shadow, has been cast a shadow in this place, in the White House, for almost a decade.
As nervous as I was about this whole process, the one thing I didn't lose sleep over was the possibility of taking bin Laden out. Justice was done. And I think that anyone who would question that the perpetrator of mass murder on American soil didn't deserve what he got needs to have their head examined.
Go to 60minutesovertime.com to see our entire interview with President Obama.